I've always been fascinated by art, the concept of creating something that has previously lived in one's imagination as an idea or perhaps a recreation of a vista or a perspective. And then, like magic, it becomes a reality, or at least it feels like magic to me, where in fact it takes a tremendous amount of work, determination, iteration, feedback, critique, and more iteration. My daughter Sonia is an artist, but has found it difficult to break into the art field. It is tough for creatives who don't always think with a business brain. I've always admired her because I have the desire and creative spirit, but lack the ability to execute. My creativity comes in the form of celebrating others through this podcast. I remember even as a very young child, Sonia would take anything she found, literally anything, and make it into a new item to enjoy. Whether it was a butter wrapper at a restaurant that became a tiny little chair for a dollhouse, to old tires, bottles, furniture from the street that would become a sculpture or a planter. Throwaway items to others were absolute treasures to her. And to be honest, I hate to admit this, but coming home from work and seeing an old tire in her bedroom was at times not my best moment as a parent. But now my house is filled with pieces of her creative spirit, and my heart is enormously full and warmed when I see them. Sonia has a gift, like so many artists, who must, and I need to emphasize must, they are compelled to create. But what happens when privilege and economic limitations deter these creatives from fulfilling their destiny? Welcome to Small and Gutsy, the podcast spotlighting nonprofits and social enterprises with budgets under $10 million. I'm Dr. Laura Scherck Wittcoff, and I'm excited to be your host. We bring you the less told stories of organizations that are bold, passionate, and making real impact. Perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Small and Gutsy is more than a podcast. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We've recently been ranked number 8 on FeedSpot's top 30 social impact podcasts and number 9 by Million Podcasts for our youth empowerment episodes. We're proud of these honors, but quite honestly, prouder still of our mission to elevate the visibility of small but mighty change makers. Do you know a nonprofit or social enterprise doing incredible work? Send them our way to laura@smallandgutsy.org. The economic reality breaking into the art world requires more than talent. It demands access to materials and space, time to create without financial pressure, networks and visibility, business acumen, which many creatives aren't necessarily trained in, or their schools often don't have courses in those areas. Without these, even the most gifted artists can struggle to gain traction. And when privilege determines who gets to be seen, we risk losing voices that reimagine a more inclusive world without imposed boundaries that draws from community engagement. You know how this happens? You know how this happens without boundaries? Indigo Arts Alliance happens. For artists of color, not unlike other industries, it has been a tough road to gain visibility, opportunities, support, resources, business acumen, acknowledgement, mentorship, and guidance. Indigo Arts Alliance co-founders Daniel and Marcia Minter shared a dream to one day create a space where artists of color could not only create work, but be inspired by one another, share stories, and build a global network that functioned as a support system across distances. Their motto, and I just really love this, building artists' relationships that last a lifetime. You know, every industry needs that, but this one in particular needs this on a continuous basis for this particular group of folks. They have really been disenfranchised in this area. Indigo Arts Alliance embodies a multiracial approach to the rich intersections of citizenship, community building, and creativity. Their work is in service to shifting historical injustices as a vital component to achieving equity for Black and Brown artists. They believe that artists are instrumental to doing the work of social justice in ways that are deeply grounded in lived experience and community. I was personally deeply moved by the artist in resident videos. I watched many of them that are on their website. The residency program itself, the podcast, the network of advisors, and the wealth of artists participating. I am so very excited to introduce my guest today, Jordia Benjamin, Executive Director of Indigo Arts Alliance. Jordia embodies a commitment to equity, inclusion, empowerment, and advocacy for communities of color. So let's get started. I am really excited. Welcome, Jordia. Please share your passion for Indigo Arts, how you got into this, and sort of what keeps you there.
Thank you so much, Laura. Your story about your daughter was heartwarming. It's so great to know everyone knows someone that is working within the creative realm or has a lifelong passion or just in the ways children are able to embrace their creative endeavors. It's
Yeah.
something that we should hold on to and be reminded, and even in our adults. But to your earlier point of that need and that must to create is definitely evident in what separates folks who take this work professionally. This is their
Mm,
career. This is how they earn their income, but also they do not see themselves doing anything else. And this is
mm-hmm.
the ways in which they communicate what's in their hearts, on their hearts, in their spirits, outwardly to anyone who will entertain, look at, or listen. And even without eyes on their work, they still wake up with a call to create. And so that is so important to emphasize of truly the embodiment of what an artist really is. So
Yeah.
thank you for that introduction and setting the ground of where our conversation is going. So it's a delight to talk to you today about the work and the mission of Indigo Arts Alliance. Again, I am beyond honored to carry this mantle forward via our co-founders, Daniel and Marcia Minter, who really set the pace of the possibilities that can happen within spaces you would not think to find art or to find artists of color.
I
And
love it.
we are the first Black and Brown centered organization for the arts and culture within our state, prioritizing and centering artists of color voices through our artist in residency programs from the very beginning of our work, which was founded in 2018 and our physical building
Love it.
opening in 2019.
And you're located in Maine. I didn't say
We
that
are,
earlier, so I just wanted to jump in because that's also unusual. You're not
yes,
within a city per se that's big,
exactly,
and I love that, but you still have a global network, so that's important to
definitely.
recognize.
So we are located in Portland, Maine, and Maine, I don't want you to be on record, but I guess I am on record when I say this statement. But I believe Maine has the most residency per capita in the US and also a very long legacy of having artist
Mhm.
residency
Artists.
program.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
have folks that have been in this sector and have been working with artists, big name artists that we all recognize and know when we walked through any large museum institution and their paintings are hanging on the walls. There's just such a long legacy of that goes back to the 1800s of artists seeking rural and remote places to create the beautiful environment that Maine offers. So outside of that, we're not in those beautiful remote locations. Granted, Portland is its own beauty, has its own beauty and presents a different format, but it's not typically a place where you would find a residency program like ours.
Mm.
And it was super important for us to not be siloed or secluded. We wanted to be rich in community and
Mhm.
surrounded by our community. Our location is in the East Bay Side, which is a historically Black community and neighborhood. And we wanted to ensure that whoever is visiting the state via Portland, where the major airport is situated, your idea of the state will be changed
Mhm.
knowing that you're seeing Black and brown and artists of color at work, but also it is important for our community members to see artists that look like themselves
Yeah.
creating work about their experience living and thriving within this area.
I think that is such an important point, and Maine has a rich history, so I'm so glad you said that, and I think to be in a field where it's reflective of people who have come before you and help open the doors for you and create that network is essential, and so you're building the blocks of what was, but wasn't enough, and so you're growing that, which is so beautiful that you've really given voice and space and community to Black and brown folks who must be artists, who must create, which I love.
Mhm.
I think it's
Mhm.
brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how did you get involved? I'd love to hear that. And then I want to know a bit about your programs. I saw some of the videos, which were just touching and beautiful. one in particular, I was so moved by the individual who did weaving, and he weaves
Mhm,
stories, and the
mhm.
stories are so reflective of both past and present. I mean, it was just incredible. So,
Yeah.
how did you get involved?
I'll just mention the artist name and I'll round back to him, but that's
Yeah.
Diedrich Bracken's, the video
Yeah, he
that you
was
were
great.
talking about. But my introduction to indigo, well, I will start with my introduction to art because I just
Mm,
want to say
good.
that the work or being in this realm of the arts for me, and I think for many others, start at such a young age. And so, again, another importance of how do we maintain creative practices throughout our lives so we can
Mm,
turn into becoming art professionals and practitioners. So for me, my love for the arts automatically started at a very young age, and I was surrounded by family members that were either artists themselves or very patrons of the arts, had artworks in their homes, talked about attending art events, museums, and I was just able to be centered and soak up that information. So when I decided to go
mm,
off to school and to get my degrees within the arts, it wasn't foreign information. And
mhm,
granted, that might not be everyone's introduction to the arts, but you have to find community that understands what you want to do and why you want to do it. And even if they don't know it from beginning to end, they know you. They know what you're contributing or what you're trying to find your way, and they're there to support. So it was instrumental to have my parents that didn't quite understand what type of work I would be doing, but they knew that I was a creative person and the
mhm,
arts fit what my desires would be for the future. So I ended up working in museums right out of college. My background is in museum work. Working within the education department, and I have been doing that for excuse me, for several decades. Well, not decades, I'm not that old, but at least for
good.
12 or 13 years, I
Right,
worked in museum education. But
great.
coming to Indigo, my prior job that brought me to Maine, working at a liberal college, Colby College Museum of Art, I
Mhm,
was introduced to Daniel and Marcia Minter via a program that the museum was doing with Daniel. He was speaking on a panel about his artistic work, exploring a Maine-based history topic, Malaga Island. Daniel has done a portfolio and continues to work on bringing the history and telling the stories of Malaga residents and the families that are still with us even today.
wow.
And via that conversation, I got introduced to Marcia. We had a lovely conversation. She started to tell me about Indigo because this was in the very first stages of the organization coming into fruition. And we kept in conversation and kept in contact. A year or two, I think, or even maybe three passed, and they had a job announcement for a deputy director. And I was looking, finding what else can I do within the arts. And even though my background, again, was working with so many museum audiences, I found myself even more attracted to working directly with artists on a day to day. And that was because Colby at that time launched a new initiative called the London Institute for American Art. And I was on the ground of that new entity, and that allowed with more artists interfacing.
Mhm,
And so knowing that Indigo was doing that every day through an artist residency structure, it really piqued my interest to go ahead and apply for the position, and ultimately I received it. And then 2 years ago, Marcia, who was the not only our co-founder, but the existing executive director, stepped back, and I stepped into the executive director job.
it's great.
So that has brought me kind of not in a way full circle because my first job was at a college museum, academic museum, and that academic museum also had a residency arm as well.
Mhm,
So I got an insight of both things existing on the same ground
mhm,
and how those interface with community or bringing community in, and with artists leading the way or artists having that conversation of how do we talk about the arts, but also how is the art interlaced with so many other topics
mhm,
that it could be an entry point to so many individuals that might not even think about talking about social issues or
right,
environmental issues
right.
or political issues, whatever the case may be.
Mhm,
But if you lead them through the aesthetics, that may get them into the door to really explore or be able to listen to different perspectives, understanding different cultures. And that again maps the whole way to just becoming a very well-rounded
Hmm.
individual to be civically engaged on your day-to-day lifestyle.
I also think it's open to the general public to experience that as well. So it's not just the expression of the artist, but you're opening the gates for people to experience things that are perhaps very different from their own lives, which I love. It's a cultural experience in a lot of ways. I just want to
Mhm.
comment on a few things with the mentors. I think it is sometimes rare. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for decades, I can say, because I'm a lot older than you are. And it's such a wonderful tribute to you to come in as an associate and then move into that role. And what I think is so terrific is she was able to step back and let you move in knowing it's the next gen. It's the
Mhm.
legacy piece. How do you continue this? And I love your background in the academic and the museum, sort of
Mhm.
how you described it, because it really is such a good fit because I imagine Indigo Arts Alliance does a lot of co-branding with different museums and different opportunities out there. And it again broadens the network for you, for the organization. And I think that's fabulous. And I really want to highlight another thing you said is that I think allowing for a level of expression socially, politically, sort of whatever moves an individual is really creating the space and the encouragement to do that, not only for the artist, but for the receiver, the person who gets to view and observe and maybe didn't have a lot of knowledge. And you're giving that as an opportunity for them to learn. So there's so much of an educational component to it that I think is great for the receiver, for the one viewing, which is great.
No, that is so important. And that's in the work and way we structure the residency. It is not just about creating spaces for artists to envision or to conceive new work or work on existing work or just to experiment and exhale. But
Right.
it's also another means of how do we bring community in? How do we have those dialogues and conversation? And it's a requirement for all of our artists to engage in some form of public or community building aspect. So
Oh, I
whether it's an
love that.
artist talk, a workshop, a part of a symposium, something again that we are transferring information, we're having dialogue between artists and the community that surrounds us.
That's great. Again, I appreciate that Marcia had the trust in you to be able to pass the torch. And you're younger, and so it does bring in a whole new next gen kind of concept and idea and probably invitation for younger
Hmm.
artists to take a risk and jump
Yeah.
in. So do you want to share about the artist?
Yeah, so Diedrich Brackens is based in LA, but originally from Texas, and he was with us for July of 2023. He is a part of our mentorship program, so he was a visiting artist that was nominated to come to Maine and was paired with a local-based artist called Jordan Parks. And Diedrich, his background, obviously, and his work medium is in textile,
Hmm.
utilizing a traditional weaving loom
Right.
to conceive these very large scale tapestries. And the tapestries range from a variety of different topics, exploring race, but also gender, historical narratives that are
Hmm.
sometimes untold, and retelling those stories as well. And just an amazing way in which he's able to combine color, but also texture and complexities again in this storytelling.
Hmm.
And so he experienced a month with us in residence and again was working on existing work that was going to be in an exhibition after the fact. But he also had an opportunity to experiment with different mediums,
Mm.
particularly print. And that's what we have a lot of artists, they come with like what they're known for or their medium strength. And then being in a residency, they have an opportunity to explore outside of what they're known of creating.
That's great.
So that is another aspect which we're really happy to integrate, or we're proud of that integration because it shows up later down the road
Hmm.
in new works. We have had
Mhm.
that in several different cases where folks came in and wanted to learn paper making, and now they're making their
Mm.
own paper to do their own prints on, and it then evolves and continues to move into something completely different. But it starts at that moment of being able to have the resource, the tools, and the access to truly explore and experiment.
And those resources also include the time and space to be able
Mhm.
to set aside to do that. What I was moved by was his writing too,
Mhm.
is remarkable. And I just felt like it wasn't enough to just write about experience. He had to
Mm.
execute it in this beautifully visual way. And yet he speaks about sort of the internal, external experience that he had of being able to process that. And I think your residency program allows for incredible introspection where someone does get to play and experiment and still stay with a piece of their medium or reflective of their medium. And it was just a beautiful example. Actually, several of the videos I think touched upon that same feeling. And so you're really giving these artists an amazing opportunity. And they're giving back to you by being
Mhm.
there and connecting and building community. So share with me some of the other programs that you are doing and anything that's in the pipeline that you feel like sharing.
Of course. So we have 3 residency programs. The first one that I spoke to is the mentorship, which Diedrich was a part of being paired with Jordan. So that is a national or an international artist coming to Maine, having studio time alongside a local or regional based artist. So Maine or the New England region.
It's great.
And that's truly important because we're connecting the global with our local. And we're also thinking in that same act, we're making sure that we're aware of what's going on globally within the arts, but also culturally. And how do we bring that access? How do we bring that connection
Great.
to and that network to Maine so we can retain the artists of colors that we have right here and also enrich our larger community with that knowledge here too. So we
Mhm.
want to kind of dissect that art and artists can thrive wherever they are, and they
Mhm.
don't have to be in large city states to have a successful career. We want to
Mhm.
change that narrative. So wherever an artist decides to make that place their home or to return to their home base, that there should be structures in place to
Mhm.
ensure the artist is able to continue their creative practice. So that's how we're conceiving Maine.
How do you match the resident artist with the artist who's more local or regional?
We find ourselves as little matchmakers. And I feel like we're successful in that because a lot of the pairs that we do, their relationships live on outside of the residency. And that's what we hope.
Mhm.
We really want to build long lasting relationships and conversations and exchange, not only within those pairs, but also within the full cohort. So within alumni that who have been here from 19, they're in conversation or working on a project or leaning on another artist just for
It's
their
great.
expertise in this current year. So we are having that now and seeing that more and more, not just within the pair relationships being really solidified, but also this branching out because of the network we have created and the similarities and just the vibrancy of the artists that we're bringing through our residency program. So for the mentorship program that we have, it's nomination based because the model has changed several times since we've been in existence because we have
Mm.
also learned how to adapt to what our community needs, community
Mm.
of artists, but also our larger community too. So currently, this model is of a nominational model, but we start with the local. We resource or outsource and bring artists that we've been working with in conversation with in our networks. We know of doing good work. We also have a place on our website where folks are able to upload their kind of portfolio just so we're aware of them and we
Great.
refer back to that consistently. It's like our own little database of artists of just keeping our finger on the pulse because we only know so much what we know.
Right.
Like, how do we ensure that information is always new and vibrant?
It's
And
great.
because we're seeing an influx of folks moving to the state as well. So it's
Mm.
another good
Mhm.
entry point to just be enriched with those who are here locally, regionally, and then also those who are operating nationally and internationally.
When I interrupted you, you were talking about really creating the space in Maine for people, local artists, to want to stay and be able to make a living. So I just
Mhm.
didn't want to miss that. That's so key.
Yeah.
And then the matchmaking, which I love. It's like dating. It's like
It
matchmaking.
is,
I love
it
it.
is.
It's
You have
great.
to find the right pair and the right person. So we have deep conversations with our local and regional artists talking about their wish list of national and international artists they would love to be in conversation with. And then we reach out to those folks and begin the work, the network. They have opportunities to be in conversation with each other just as though they can feel, is this a really good match? Is this a good vibe? Is the
It's great.
timing right? Is the topics of exploration in alignment with each other? And it's a back and forth that takes several months for us to really develop. So that's one program. The second program is our David C. Driscoll Fellowship at Black Seed Studio. That is just for Maine-based or Maine-rooted artists. It's a
Mhm.
separate studio with a longer period of access, and it comes with a stipend as well. But it is, again, when I was saying we are responding to the need and filling voids that are in our community, this fellowship was created with that in mind
Lovely.
because we
Mhm.
wanted and we were hearing from our local artists that access to studio space was so difficult and also came with a heavy price tag. So we wanted to eliminate that. You have free studio access for a longer period of time. It comes with a stipend and it's just there for you to use. So it's not necessarily heavily community centric because you're working in the community anyway, but it allows you that extra space, time, and resources to work on your own independent work. So
It's
that's
great.
program number two, and that is application based. We open up our applications every January. And by April, the new cohort for that full year is started. And so it's one artist each 3 months.
So for the year they do that artist gets the studio for 3 months.
Yeah. So we have 3 artists that come through that program currently, and then for our mentorship, we have 10 artists that comes through that program. And then our final program that we offer is our C. Daniel Dawson Curatorial and Research Fellowship that is based in New York City. And that is
Mm,
our first program, started this year in February, that is outside of the state of Maine, and it works directly with a scholar, C. Daniel Dawson, who's based in New York City, is a renowned photographer, scholar, curator, and educator.
great.
And the fellow is working directly with his archive as a source of inspiration to their other artistic work, photography work, curatorial work, research work, etc.
It's
So
great.
you have that mentorship with a very renowned and respected elder in the field who is using their
Mhm.
networks to connect and funnel through to you alongside of having access to a full artist archive is
Love
just
it.
completely enriching. And we award that to one fellow each year. So in total, we're working with 14 artists in a calendar year through our 3 independent
Mhm.
programs we offer. But there's so much more, and there's always more that Indigo Arts Alliance is doing. But at the core, those are our top 3 programs that we offer.
They're amazing. If you produce and maintain and build this network, the sky is the limit. It will keep growing. You haven't been operating for that long. Do you envision the fellowship program in different mediums over time?
Yes. So for the research, the fellowship in New
Yeah.
York is
Yeah.
definitely, it goes throughout different mediums. Right now, we're working with someone that is a multimedia artist, but is also an
Mhm.
archivist. And so they're using their archivist skills in really organizing the collection. So when a curator wants to come online and pull from the resources or the photography aspect of Dawson's work, that is easily accessible to them
It's great.
digitally as well. And then we're also collecting a lot of storytelling, having short form interviews with Dawson. So that is
Great.
being added to the archive as well. So, and it's also connected to the photography that we're archiving. So you not only have the visual, but you also have the audio and you have the historical context just merged into one.
Great.
So it's very multi layered.
It's fabulous. I actually have a son living in the Boston area who's an archivist. And it's a wonderful field. It takes a very special person to wanna really dig and research, and so I love that that's an opportunity. Quick question on the residency. The local person, do they also sort of have a medium of choice? Do they get to explore once they've been accepted into maybe a medium that's outside of what they typically would do? Is that open for discussion? How does that work?
We have no restriction when it comes to mediums. So all of our programs, we have pretty much, and I've been working to say we have like had all mediums come through our programs, but the only
Love it.
mediums we have not been able to have is someone that works in glass blowing and bronze.
Mm.
So we
Oh,
have had
interesting.
poets, we've had performers, we've had singers, writers, painters,
Wow.
illustrators, I mean, you name it,
That's great.
have come through the program, and at the end of this year, we would have engaged with 86 artists, so a variety of backgrounds and mediums,
Great.
but also where they're coming from globally and locally as well.
I love that. I This program is so amazing for so many reasons. I love that it's not just a one-time residency or a one-time fellowship or a one-time mentorship. It really you plant the seeds for these ongoing relationships, which is your motto and your tagline, but I need to emphasize it because it's a rarity. Sometimes people don't necessarily stay in touch. My daughter did a residency when she was in college or just out of college. I think a professor had recommended her and which was an amazing
Mm,
experience for her. And she chose her medium because she would never have done it otherwise, was concrete.
mm,
And it was
mm,
such a good it was so funny. Here's my kid who used to bring tires into her room. It didn't entirely surprise me. And I have 2 of her concrete pieces hanging on my wall. Believe me, that took effort to get those
mm.
concrete. They're small, luckily. But it really demonstrates that the creative mind is a creative mind, and you set the place and the environment and the tone for folks to engage with each other, engage with materials of all kinds, engage with a process, shift and change, grow and learn from each other. And that openness and that ability to influence is just a wonderful, even in other industries, I don't think we mentor enough.
Mm,
And I think you're creating that space for ongoing
mhm,
relationships in the future, and you're building that
mhm,
network in such a beautiful way. And I need to say, I'm moved by your ability to document because
mhm,
those videos are truly remarkable. And it's so easy to have the experience and lose it because there's no kind of reminder. Sometimes there's an outcome it could be some writing or, as you said, music or a visual piece, but it often can get lost because when you have the residents really talk about their experience, you feel the transformation for them, that
mhm,
they really
mhm.
come out of it changed in many ways. And I think you've achieved that beautifully in a very short period of time, by the way.
Yes, thank you. And that is very intentional of ensuring that our stories live beyond us, our
Mhm.
experience, and adding to the larger art canon, right? When we think about historical narratives and how things are documented and who are documenting it is another leg. So we're also given opportunities to other Black and Brown creatives behind the scenes. So
Great.
those that are working in the marketing and comms and those who are writing on behalf or about the artist, the record, another aspect of the work that we do. After the residency, we then pair the artist with a Black and Brown writer to again elaborate on their work. And that adds to just the artist's toolbox as well in
Mm.
their portfolio when they're applying for other grants and research opportunities or another residency. It just adds to their expertise and their range of works. And that's all
Mhm.
super important. Even the videos have been used. We gift them to the artist
It's
as
great.
a part of their exiting, and they use it again on their website, etc., and beyond other things to again provide them with more resources, more access, more tools to make themselves positioned for a lifelong career in the arts.
It's so wonderful. It's really wonderful. Does your space ever hold shows?
Yeah, we do public programs, like I mentioned before, the symposiums, the
Right.
workshops, the artist talks. When it comes to the curatorial arm, which folks do ask from us a lot. We do work in that aspect, but it does not take place in our building. Our
Mm-hmm.
building was strictly designed to be a studio. It's built in that manner with the artist in mind, in the construction, the ways things are laid out, the materials we chose to use for that building structure. It is a studio, it's an active studio.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So to do any hanging or exhibition, we're not made for that space or to
Mm-hmm.
do that work in the right sense. So we have partnered with museums locally, nationally to provide opportunities and galleries to provide opportunities for artist exhibitions.
Great.
We have curated in Seattle with a small gallery there called Soil Gallery. And that came through one of our advisors that has been with us from the very beginning. And a lot of our advisors are not just Maine based, they're globally based because it's
Great.
important for us as a global organization that happens to be based in Maine to ensure that our network is reflective of the work that we desire to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we have also exhibited work, which is right across the street, right from us. We have an art gallery that are close partners with us that have shown artists, alumni work. And I want to also preference too that it's not a requirement for artists to create work when they're in residence with us.
Oh, that's great.
That is different. That sometimes is a requirement for other residencies. You can come here and read your entire residency or do research or
Mm-hmm.
just rest, simply exhale. And I mean that because we
Mm-hmm.
position artists and we want to ensure that we're taking care of the human at the person level
Love it.
and
Mm-hmm.
not emphasize on the product because we
Yeah.
don't see artists as product makers. We see them
Yeah.
as thinkers, as innovators,
Oh, I love this so much. Yeah,
as
that's great.
cultural movers. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to ensure that the person is being taken care of at first. Then, however they want to leave, that's ingraded. They come in and they might want to work the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to make a comment on what you said before, which I think is so important. You allow the artist to come and do what they need to do, whether it's like it's your time, your space, your time. We want to set up the environment, we set the tone. It's up to you. And what I love about that is you're not forcing a level of commercialism. The business acumen is important. I don't want to discount that. But I was recently at the other LA art show because I hosted an artist whom I had met once before and bought a few of her pieces. And I just said, hey, if you're ever in LA doing a show again, rather than stay in a hotel, come stay with me. And she did. And it was super easy and super fun. I did my own thing, gave her a key, whatever. I showed up at the show. I actually manned her booth personed her booth, excuse me, for a short period of time, which I loved. And her art, what I loved about it, the pieces I bought were so different from her iteration currently, which is more abstract. And she actually said to me, I want you to go around the show. It was like a little test, but it was actually a really fun test. There's some people she knows there who've done really well commercially, but haven't stretched themselves, haven't done anything, haven't
Mhm.
iterated at all. So I went around the show. It was a fun show, super interesting artists. I love seeing the creative spirit in people. And I picked two. She was surprised, I think. I got them. I said, "These look like they're a little more commercialized," meaning that kind of easy to put in any house, not sort of pushing the envelope at all, so on and so forth. And she said, "You nailed it. You got both of them." And they weren't bad. They were beautiful. However, I knew what she meant. So I just want to highlight that I love the fact that you don't foist that upon someone, but allow the internal mechanism. And it doesn't mean you're not promoting people to sell their work and do well for themselves and be able to support themselves, and the business stuff is really important too. But this is their calling and this is their must do. And therefore, it really is that balance. So I love that you leave that door open for people to experiment and figure it out. And then they'll get advice from people along the way. So I'm not against, obviously, people needing to support themselves, not at all. The question is at what cost? To
Mm.
themselves interpersonally, and that was what this artist
Mhm.
was trying to share with me. So I had to go back and share that story because you sort of nailed it, and the fact that you and the founders have created this open environment and still iterating what you're gonna do next and how you're gonna do it and building these relationships with galleries and museums and globally with other artists and still wanting to keep the artists that are local with the belief that they can earn a living for themselves. So I hope I
Mhm.
encapsulated that, but it really is quite remarkable. And I love so much of what you're doing because I think so many voices of underserved communities historically are not told, and they need to be told and they need to be celebrated regardless of what the rest of us need to witness and see. Some of it very positive and uplifting and amazing, and some really horrific. And both are
Mhm.
equally as significant to bear witness to that in other cultures as well as in our own. So I love that you do
Mhm.
that. And I'm so in awe that you've taken on this very tough role and legacy to make this happen. And you're making it happen along with your
Mhm.
amazing board of directors and your advisors and your founders. And you need to be celebrated. And I'm just really impressed and proud. So, in a
Yeah. No,
nutshell,
thank you, thank you, thank you. It really takes a community. Another reason why we have Alliance in our name. We know there's no way we can do this work by ourselves. It's going to take a plethora of folks coming together with a joint mission, a passion for the arts and the artists
yeah,
to ensure that there is creative outlets and communities of support for them to do their work. And also, it's only going to benefit community as well. It's enriching both the artists and the community that they visit
100%.
and the communities they return to after the residency as well.
Yeah,
So I see in this way, we are working with high level professional artists, and there is a very small pool of artists that are able to completely live off their arts.
right.
You know, there are artists that are full time professors at institution at the same time of creating their practice and their work,
Mhm.
or artists that work a regular 9 to 5, and in the evenings they make sure that they're spending time in their studios. So everyone, works towards that of like wanting to be able to fully be functioning and living off of the receipts of their work.
Mhm.
But even still, to our earlier point, despite not being able to fully be 100% full time in that practice or receiving commercial kind of support in that practice, this need of creating is still present.
Yeah.
And so, whatever an artist, and I think artists are just champions of running towards your dreams, running
Mhm.
towards who you are internally,
Yeah.
because no matter what, the art supply will be bought, the studio time will be paid for. That is sacrificing short term and sometimes even long term softness and benefits to fulfill their artistic spirit. And so it's not just the bottom line of making revenue from your
Right.
work, it's about fulfilling who you are
Mhm.
at the fullness of I am a creative person. I am dedicating time, space, and energy and my own dollars to ensure that I'm communicating in my forum or in my medium
Mhm.
to ask questions, but also explore and to answer questions for myself
Mhm.
through the arts or what we
Mhm.
call the arts.
Yeah. My daughter works at a university for the same reason, but her apartment is filled with things she's collected and things that she's created and mostly things she's repurposed because that's so much of what she does. And it's wonderful. It's beautiful. I go in and every little nook and cranny is this imagination come to life. And I admire and love that. And I hope one day she can spend more of her energy and time in the space that she absolutely loves for exactly the
Mhm.
reason you talk about. So, toward the end of the podcast, I always have a round of quick and gutsy questions. So, are you ready for your quick and gutsy questions?
Bring it on.
Bring it
Let's go.
on. Let's go. Okay. What is at the top of your wish list for Indigo Arts Alliance? However, the answer can't be money or funding because every nonprofit, that's top of mind as it should be. But in this case, what's at the top of your wish list excluding that?
That there be many indigos around the world.
Oh, I love that gets replicated and it becomes one big spider webby network that people can
Yeah.
access. I love it. That's great. I just love that. If you were to think of a song that describes Indigo Arts Alliance, what would it be?
It's a family reunion.
Ah, I love it. That's great. Because it really is. It's a family of artists that just keeps going. You keep meeting more relatives, right? I love it so much. What makes Indigo Arts Alliance gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy. What makes you gutsy?
We are constantly redefining the world
Mm-hmm.
and right-sizing it
Yeah.
to fit and to ensure legacy building of artists and our community. So we're redefining, reimagining
Mm-hmm.
possibilities, worlds, futures,
Mm-hmm.
and also are not afraid to center artists of color. I think that is
Mm-hmm.
really gutsy considering the landscape which we are in. We understand that if one marginalized community is not free, we all as a community will not be free.
Yeah.
So it is important to say it's not about exclusion, it is really about inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And in ensuring that everyone voice, perspectives, backgrounds, histories are provided and given the same amount of care and attention and resources to explore. It's all about more stories to the table versus less.
Mm-hmm. I love that because every boat rises when you fill up the tub, right? It just does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of our collective history and it should be out there. What is something that outsiders or even a few insiders don't know about Indigo Arts Alliance?
We are a very small team in staff. It's, I say this often and people's mouths usually drop. For full-time folks, we have two, myself and another colleague that works on the admin. One of our co-founders is our artist director, but works directly with ensuring, being that connection piece and that grounding piece for the artist. But it's 2.5 folks. We have a part-time admin assistant. So to do all of this work is really a very, very small team. But the only way we're able to execute the work that we do is because of the connections and the networks and the alliances that we have built over the years. But if your audience are more intrigued and they want to know more, we do have 2 new job positions that's on our website. So join the team.
That's exciting.
If this work moves you. And so we can, maintain the work that we're doing, but also grow because like I said, there's always more that we're doing, but there's limitless amount of areas we want to go into. And so I feel like we're running a marathon race, but also we understand the urgency of doing this work in the time frame of being able to do it. So we want to ensure that our time is, again, responding to, but filling voids that our artists need.
I love that. It's beautiful, really beautiful. If you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about Indigo Arts Alliance, who might that be?
I have a yes and to that question.
Totally fine.
It's important to, yes, have large names and celebrities or folks that have a wider reach to bring awareness to the work. But for our success and what we have seen, we operate from a very grassroots level. And so we understand with many, it takes forward movement. So the reliance of just one person is, or the dependency of one breakthrough person is not where I would hope or I would want for us as an organization because we're so young and also we're not designed like that. Many foundations are a single name or a family foundation and that's who funds it and that's who fits the bill and all of the things. But for us, I don't know large name celebrities, their ethical giving, because whenever we receive funding or anything, we want to make sure that, we understand that not all money is good money. And we want to ensure that we are aligned in our same ideology and it's rooted in our mission and we have joint missions to that. So I would be hesitant to call out somebody and then I don't know them, intimately.
Fair enough.
In that
Fair
way.
enough.
But I would say I am more interested of the everyday people, of working class, of those who are positioned a little bit more above working class, who interact with the arts on a day-to-day basis. I am talking to folks that would spend, the $500 on a concert ticket. Reconsider what that ticket can do to impact the folks that are working in the arts in your own community. So Those are the folks I'm appealing to because without the arts, it hurts them the most.
Right, that's
It
true.
impacts their lives the most. So we're appealing to that mass.
So we can reframe this to any celebrity or influencer who's deeply rooted in celebrating artists of color and just wants to put your website on their social media. Because that's one way to look at it if they're really deeply interested in what you're doing, in your mission. So there isn't one person, it's really many.
Yeah.
So how do folks reach you? How do they find you to participate or to donate? What's the best way?
Definitely through our website. We have a big donate button. You can't miss it to the upper right corner.
You
So
know
our
exactly
website
where it
is,
is. So what is your website?
it is Indigo Arts, plural, alliance.me, not .com, not .net, ME. Just think me, which is, short form for Maine. So
That's great.
indigoartsalliance.me. But you can also follow us on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, to be abreast. If you're on our website any longer for 30 seconds, a little pop-up jumps up at you and it asks for your email. It brings you into our newsletter. We send out weekly newsletters because the themes changes each week. You'll get updates on our alumni, press, programs, and of course, a direct acts of giving. So those are the weeks that we kind of section those interactions out to our network. But like I said, this time with you only scratched the surface of the fullness of the work that we do.
Well, and
So
there are 2 positions, so definitely go check
yeah,
that out if you're interested. I think it's great. I also think putting out a newsletter every week's a lot of work.
it
There's a
is.
lot
It
of work
is.
that you all do. That's why people think you're much bigger than you are. But I just want to take a minute and thank you for spending this time with me. I learned so much, and I'm so in awe of what you've accomplished thus far and what you continue to do and grow and the network that you're creating for artists of color. It's really quite remarkable. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank you for being on Small and
No,
Gutsy.
thank you for creating this platform. It
Mm,
is so important for, smaller organization with very small budgets to have access to tell our stories, to be amplified, and to empower. So I just want to just extend that same gratitude that you're giving to myself from our organization to you and your network and the work that you're doing. It is so important to the survival and the sustainability of organizations like ourselves.
yeah, thank you. I feel that's why I started it. So welcome to the Small and Gutsy family. We're delighted to have you. Please go to smallandgutsy.org to check out all of our episodes. And if you're so inclined, please purchase some Small and Gutsy merchandise, consider sponsoring an episode, or making a donation. Both are tax deductible and help keep us going and spotlighting these great organizations. The opinions and viewpoints expressed by our guests are independent and don't reflect the position or views of Small and Gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the donors, the sponsors, and my incredible board of directors, Brianna Carmichael, John Gatto, Lucy Mello, Ari McCoy, Melissa Greitz, and Serena Rajabian, who believed in me in this project enough so to sign on to support this effort, and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. Together, we are spreading social impact, and you can help us. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to email me the name of any organization you feel would benefit from being interviewed. From small and gutsy to big with impact. I'm Dr. Laura Scherck Wittcoff, and thanks for listening.